Let's get one thing straight right now. Your value is not up for debate. Not from a man. Not from anyone. But here's the truth most won't tell you. Sometimes without even knowing it, you're handing your value away in little pieces, quietly, slowly, subtly. And by the time you realize it, you're standing in front of someone who no longer respects you, no longer sees your power because you taught him not to. It's not always loud. It's not always dramatic. Sometimes it's in the way you shrink when you should stand tall. Sometimes it's in the way you over-explain when you owe no explanation. Sometimes it's when you say yes when everything in your gut screams no. And listen, this isn't about playing games or acting tough. This is about letting someone play with what you've spent years building your worth. Because if you don't respect your own standards, he won't either. If you don't walk like you know what you bring to the table, he'll assume there's nothing on your plate. And if you're constantly trying to prove your value to a man, you've already told him you don't believe you have it. So today we're calling it out, not with apologies, not with fear. We're naming the 5 things that kill your value in front of a man. Not to shame you, but to wake you up. Because the moment you see it, you can change it. And when you change it, you take the power back. Let me break it to you plain and clear. The moment you start chasing, you start losing. You might not feel it at first, might not notice it right away, but make no mistake, every text you send that doesn't get answered, every call you make just to check in, every time you rearrange your day, hoping he'll notice, that's a withdrawal from your value account. And baby, those add up quick. You were never meant to chase. You weren't designed to run after breadcrumbs of attention or cling to someone's potential. You're built to attract through presence, purpose. But when you start doing too much, trying too hard, pushing to prove, you flip the script and put yourself in a position that screams one thing loud and clear: I don't believe I'm enough, unless you see me. That's not confidence. That's desperation wrapped in affection. And men smell that from a mile away. See, the problem isn't effort, it's unbalanced effort. It's energy that's not matched. It's you pouring from your cup, while his stays full. And if you're being honest with yourself, you already know when you're chasing. It's that gut feeling that you're overreaching, that little ache in your chest when he leaves you on read, that silence after you double texted because he didn't reply the first time. You feel it. And yet you keep giving. Why? Because deep down you've tied your worth to his response. That's where the damage starts. Let me ask you something real. When's the last time you paused and asked yourself, what am I actually receiving in return? What does he bring to my table? Because the truth is, when you're chasing, you're not evaluating, you're just hoping he'll wake up, hoping he'll change, hoping he'll give you what you've already earned without begging. But here's the harsh truth. Men don't value what's thrown at them. They value what they earn, what they respect, what makes them step up. So when you chase, when you make it too easy, when you show up without being invited, you strip away the challenge, the mystery, the self-worth. You're basically announcing you don't have to do anything. I'll do it all. And let's be real, if he doesn't have to try, he won't. Not because he's evil, not because he's broken, but because you've removed the need. People only rise when the standard demands it. You want a man to lead, to respect you, to commit to you, then you've got to stop showing him you'll be there no matter how little he gives. That's not love. That's emotional labor on credit. You are not a placeholder. You are not an option. You are not a backup plan waiting for his clarity. You are the table, the invitation, the whole experience. And when you sit in that, when you own that, you stop chasing, because you realize the person who truly sees your value will never make you beg for a seat. It's not about playing games, it's about positioning. It's about recognizing that energy flows where it's respected. You don't need to pull a man toward you. You need to stand so firmly in your space that the right one wants to meet you there. That's power. That's feminine energy. That's real attraction. So if you're feeling like you're always doing the most, always initiating, always proving, pause, step back, reset. You don't need to chase a man who's meant to walk with you. You don't need to convince someone of your value when you live like you believe in it. The moment you stop running after what's not choosing you is the moment you become magnetic to what will. Every time you let something slide that chips away at your self-respect, you send a silent message. My value is flexible. And let me tell you something, respect and flexibility don't mix. You can't teach someone how to honor you if you keep tolerating disrespect, just to keep the peace, or hold on to love. That's not love. That's self-abandonment dressed up in fear. The moment a man talks to you sideways and you let it go, he learns. The second he shows you disregard and you stay silent, he learns. Every boundary you ignore for the sake of keeping him around teaches him that you're willing to shrink for his comfort. And once someone knows you'll tolerate the bare minimum, they'll stop giving even. Disrespect doesn't always walk in like a storm. Sometimes it slips in quietly. A sarcastic comment, a dismissive look, a forgotten promise. You tell yourself, it's not a big deal, but it is. Because what you allow is what you reinforce. The more you overlook, the more invisible your standards become. And a woman without standards becomes a playground for a man with no discipline. You might think keeping quiet is strength, that choosing your battles means swallowing every offense just to avoid drama. But here's what no one tells you. The more you swallow, the more you suffocate. You lose bits of yourself every time you choose peace with him over peace with yourself. Until one day you're sitting across from someone who has no idea who you really are. Because you've trained him to love a version of you that doesn't speak up. When you tolerate disrespect, you're not just telling him how to treat you, you're telling yourself how little you think you deserve. And don't confuse endurance with worth. You don't earn love by surviving pain. You don't prove loyalty by staying through harm. That's not strength, that's neglect of the most important relationship you have, the one with yourself. A man who truly sees you will never ask you to lose your dignity to keep his attention. He'll never make you question your value just to stay in the room. And if someone does, that's not your person, that's your wake-up call. You can't control how someone acts, but you are 100% in control of what you accept. And when you raise your standards, people either rise with you or fall off. And both outcomes are blessings. You don't have to scream, beg, or threaten. Your silence, your absence, your refusal to engage with disrespect, that is where your power lives. Because here's the thing. Love isn't proven by what you put up with, it's revealed in how you protect yourself when someone crosses the line. And don't let loneliness trick you into thinking that anything is better than nothing. Being alone and respected is far more valuable than being in a relationship that slowly erodes your self-worth. This world is full of women who settled for being tolerated instead of cherished. Don't be one of them. You weren't made to be picked apart. You weren't made to be silenced. You weren't made to be tested to your breaking point just to prove you're ride or die. That's not romantic. That's emotional survival. And your worth isn't measured by how much pain you can absorb without flinching. Start holding the line. When something feels off, speak on it. When a boundary is crossed, address it. If it happens again, act. Not with drama, not with desperation, but with clarity. Your silence in the face of disrespect doesn't make you noble. It makes you a target. And you are not here to be tolerated. You are here to be treasured. You teach people how to treat you by what you accept, by what you allow, and by how quickly you correct what doesn't align with who you are. That correction, that's self-respect, that's power. And that's the energy that doesn't just protect your value, it multiplies it. Neediness is a quiet killer of value. It doesn't always scream, but it shows up in the subtle ways you reach for validation like it's oxygen. It's when your mood depends on whether or not he texted you back. It's when your day suddenly feels ruined because he didn't notice your new outfit. It's when your confidence fluctuates based on his energy. That right there is the problem. When your sense of self becomes tied to how much attention a man gives you. Let's get this straight. There's nothing wrong with wanting to feel seen, appreciated, loved. That's human. But there's a sharp difference between wanting connection and becoming dependent on it. When you start needing someone to constantly confirm your worth, you lose the ability to confirm it for yourself, and a man can feel that. He might not say it, but he knows when he's being turned into your emotional lifeline. And most won't carry that weight for long. It's not attractive when every conversation is a test. When you keep fishing for compliments because deep down you don't believe you're enough without them. When you start keeping mental score of how often he reaches out, how quickly he replies, how many emojis he uses. Because all of that becomes your proof that you matter. But here's the real truth. The moment you start requiring constant reassurance, you show your hand says, I don't believe I'm worthy unless you tell me so. That's heavy, that's pressure, that's a red flag not for him, but for you. Because when you constantly need his attention to feel okay, you're giving him power that was never his to hold. You're placing your emotional security in someone else's hands, and now every time he pulls back even slightly you spiral. You wonder if you did something wrong. You replay the last message. You start dialing back your own needs, just to keep the peace. That's not love. That's self-betrayal masked as effort. What's wild is that this neediness doesn't come from weakness. It often comes from fear. The fear of not being enough. The fear of abandonment. The fear that if you don't stay on his radar you'll be forgotten. But chasing constant attention doesn't erase that fear. It feeds it. Because you'll never get enough attention to fix what only you can heal. It becomes a bottomless pit, and the more you demand, the more he pulls away. You don't want to be the woman who needs a man to text her just to feel like she matters. You want to be the woman who knows she matters and lets his attention be a bonus, not a requirement. When you stop needing attention and start standing in your own energy, you become magnetic. Men notice that. That's the kind of woman who walks in a room and doesn't chase attention because it already chases her. The shift happens the moment you stop looking outward and start building from within. That means creating a life you love, regardless of who's in it. That means pouring into yourself so fully that no text, no call, no delay can shake your confidence. That means validating your own beauty, your own intelligence, your own presence, so when a man sees it, it's confirmation, not a lifeline. Here's what no one tells you. True high value doesn't beg, doesn't chase, and definitely doesn't cling. It walks away when the energy is off. It stays calm when the attention dips. It doesn't panic, it pivots. Because it knows something most people forget. The right person never makes you question your place. The right person doesn't make you earn attention like it's a prize. They give it freely, genuinely, consistent. So if you've been caught in that loop, constantly needing, constantly reaching, constantly questioning, pause, breathe, pull your power back. It was never meant to live in his hands. You are enough without the emoji, without the good morning text, without the compliment. When you move like you know that, the energy shifts, the game changes, and instead of asking for attention, you become the one they don't want to look away from. You were never meant to be a watered-down version of yourself. Not for a man, not for anyone. But too often, without even realizing it, you start chipping away at your edges. You mute your voice, you edit your truth, you hold back your opinions just to keep things smooth, to avoid rocking the boat, to make sure you stay likable. And at first, it feels harmless. You think, I'm just being easygoing, I'm just trying to make it work. But over time, that quiet compromise becomes your new identity, and you lose the very thing that made you magnetic to begin with. The truth is, when you start molding yourself to fit what you think he wants, you're no longer showing up as you, you're performing, you're strategizing, you're shape-shifting into someone palatable, someone agreeable, someone safe. And while that might get you attention, it won't get you respect, because no man values what he doesn't fully see, and he can't see you if you're too busy hiding. It starts small. Maybe you pretend to like something you don't. Maybe you stay quiet when he says something that doesn't sit right. Maybe you go along with plans that drain you just to avoid confrontation. You call it compromise, but what it really is, self-erasure. You teach him that your preferences don't matter, that your needs are optional, that your voice is adjustable. And once he learns that, he starts treating you like a background character in his life instead of the force you were meant to be. And I get it. It's scary to show up fully, because what if your honesty pushes him away? What if your truth is too much? What if your fire burns too bright? So instead you dim, you shrink, you take up less space, hoping that'll make you easier to love. But listen closely. Anything you have to dim yourself for isn't real love. It's conditional acceptance. And that's not what you're here for. When you hide your personality, your opinions, your boundaries, you're not protecting the relationship, you're slowly suffocating it. Because connection without truth is nothing but performance. You end up with a man who's in love with the version of you you created to please him, not the woman you actually are. And then you wonder why you feel lonely even when you're together. You wonder why you don't feel understood, why he doesn't get you. He doesn't get you because you never gave him the chance to meet the real you. And let's be real, it's exhausting. Constantly managing perception, constantly suppressing how you feel, constantly trying to be chill. That's not sustainable. Sooner or later, the real you is going to need room to breathe. And if you've spent the whole relationship pretending, then when that real version shows up, it's going to feel like a stranger to him. That's where the disconnect happens. That's where the resentment builds. That's where it all starts to fall apart. Authenticity is not a luxury. It's a requirement. It's not about being aggressive or confrontational. It's about being rooted. It's about knowing who you are, what you believe, what you need, and not being afraid to express. The right man won't be threatened by your truth. He'll be drawn to it. Because a woman who stands in her full self is rare. She's not easy to manipulate. She's not easy to impress, but she's unforgettable. And that kind of energy, that's what commands respect. So stop negotiating with your identity. Stop apologizing for having a voice, a standard, a presence. Stop trying to be someone he'll choose and start being someone he has to rise to. Because when you show up as the fullest, boldest, most honest version of you, one of two things will happen. He'll either match your energy, or he'll exit. In either way, you win. Because your job is not to be chosen by everyone. Your job is to be fully you, so the ones who are aligned with your truth can actually find you. That's where your value lives. In your wholeness, in your rawness, in your truth, not in your ability to edit, shrink, or silence yourself. That's not love. That's survival. And you weren't made to survive a relationship.
You were made to thrive in one. But it only starts when you stop hiding. The second you make a man the center of your world, you start losing your gravity. You start rotating around him, his mood, his schedule, his needs, and forget that you were your own universe before he ever showed up. That's how your value starts to slip, quietly, slowly. You give up parts of your identity in exchange for closeness. You put your passions on pause. Your routines bend to fit his. Your decisions start with "let me see what he wants first." And just like that, you stop being the woman who captivated him in the first place. Let's call it what it is: obsession disguised as loyalty. You tell yourself it's love, that this is what devotion looks like. But love doesn't require you to abandon yourself. It doesn't demand you sideline your dreams to make someone else the star. It's one thing to support a man. It's another thing entirely to make him the mission. When your goals fade into the background, when your confidence starts shrinking behind his, when your joy hinges on how much time he's spending with you, you've lost alignment. You've lost balance. You've lost you. You weren't born to orbit someone else's life. You were meant to build your own, stand firm in your own identity, and walk beside someone, not behind them, not under them, not wrapped around them so tightly that you forget how to breathe on your own. But when you pour all your energy into him, hoping that if you give enough, love enough, stay enough, he'll see you as irreplaceable, what you're really doing is proving that you don't believe your presence is powerful unless he confirms it. That's not attraction, that's desperation. And no man respects a woman who abandons herself for his comfort. It's not that he's cruel, it's that we teach people how to treat us by how we treat ourselves. If your life revolves around him, he starts to think it should. If your happiness is in his hands, he starts to believe he controls it. That's where control dynamics get twisted. That's where you lose your footing and he starts pulling away. Not because he's evil, but because there's no mystery left. No independence, no balance, just need. And let's not pretend this happens all at once. It creeps. You skip a workout here. You cancel a friend's invite there. You stop journaling, reading, creating. Why? Because he might call. Because he might want to hang out. Because he had a rough day and you want to be available. Slowly your days become a waiting room. You wait for his attention, his time, his scraps of affection. And in that waiting you abandon your own growth. Men don't fall in love with dependency. They fall in love with energy, with motion, with the woman who's out in the world doing her thing, living fully, creating with or without him. That's the woman who commands respect. The woman who has a life so vibrant that being in it feels like a privilege, not a routine. And if a man feels like your entire emotional ecosystem depends on him, he won't feel empowered, he'll feel trapped. The truth is, when you make someone your center, they can destroy you with their absence. And that's too much power to give away. Your dreams, your joy, your peace, those aren't extras, they are essential. They are what remind you who you are. They are what make your energy real, grounded, magnetic. A man should add to your life, not be your life. You are the foundation. You are the fire. He's the addition, not the core. So start reclaiming your center. Pour into the things that light you up. Build a life that feels good whether he texts back or not. Because the version of you that is full, complete, purpose-driven, that's the version who knows how to love without losing herself. And when you stand in that version, everything changes. You stop begging for consistency. You stop chasing emotional crumbs. You stop over-investing in someone who hasn't earned that level of access. You are not here to disappear into someone else's life. You are here to create one so powerful that anyone who steps into it knows they're lucky to be there. And if a man doesn't meet you there with the same energy, let him go. You are too much woman to be orbiting around someone who doesn't even know how to hold space for your light. Let your life be the center, and watch how the right ones align. Here's what it all comes down to. Your value isn't up for debate, but the way you show up can either protect it or slowly hand it away. When you chase instead of attract, when you tolerate disrespect just to keep someone around, when you rely on constant attention to feel whole, when you bury your true self to be accepted, and when you revolve your life around a man, instead of standing firmly in your own, you're not just lowering your standards, you're shrinking your presence. In that presence, that's your power. That's the part of you that speaks before you say a word. The energy that either commands respect or invites neglect. It's time to pull your power back. No more overgiving. No more over-explaining. No more hoping someone will recognize your worth, while you quietly abandon it in the process. Start holding the line. Start walking like your energy is the gift. Not the prize to be won, but the standard to be met. Because the right man won't be intimidated by your strength, your voice, your independence. He'll be drawn to it. In the ones who fall away, let them. You're not here to convince. You're here to stand tall, fully seen, fully heard, and fully you. So from this day forward, no more dimming, no more chasing, no more making anyone your center but you. This is your season to own your value like your life depends on it. because in all the ways that matter it does.